This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby, and I'm inside a warm studio this week. It was pretty cold at the inauguration last week.
I would say it was, I was more comfortable than you probably, but you probably had more fun.
Well, fun's maybe relative, but it was cold. It was cold for sure. We're still thawing up. But this is the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby. Like I said, we've got a full show here for you. You know, as the new government comes in has been sworn in and is now Congress is appointing the president's cabinet, they're going to be looking at changing the laws. And how do you know if you'll be able to maximize that for your situation? We'll be talking with lead CPA Joshua Sikora here coming up later in the show with Market Tax Services. You will not want to miss that. But we've got Larry Clefcorn here, an advisor with Market Advisor Group Wichita, our Wichita location. And this was someone that missed an RMD, right? And This is someone you met with. Now, as a financial advisor, you know, they're coming to you because you're the investment guy. You should know about these things. But really, this was not a question that could just be answered by yourself, the financial advisor. This is someone that you needed another professional to come in and help you with this situation.
Absolutely. And, you know, I just think whenever these things come up, I think about what a disadvantage it is for other clients with other firms, because they could be getting this treatment of, oh, let me just call my CPA or my estate planning attorney or our Medicare. Let me just have them come in the room and sit down with us and answer that question, you know.
Well, but sometimes, like you said, with those other firms where people don't have access to the CPAs, the estate planning attorneys, it leaves the burden on the client's shoulders or the retiree's shoulders.
Right.
And that's tough. But in this story, this is someone who missed an RMD that you met with. Tell us a little bit about what was going on in this person's situation.
Well, what they said was that they had set it up to do a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution, to their church. And they asked the church, you know, did you get our
Money.
QCD? Yeah.
Send my donation in?
And they said, we'll look at it and give you a call. And so he got the call, and they said, no, we haven't received anything. And that really puzzled the person. And so they did some checking, and as it turned out, the party responsible, which were the ones that were supposed to actually do the mechanical part.
So the custodian, I think is the technical term, where the gentleman's money was held.
Right. In their processing of it, they errantly coded it as finished, but they hadn't done it.
Oh, well, you know, hey, as long as it gets coded finished and it doesn't cost me the money, that's not a problem, right?
Right.
Not
now,
really.
To give them this, they fully admitted and accepted responsibility for it. The problem is, through having our CPA there, there's nothing really that you can do now to go back and make that a 2024 contribution.
The end of the year's come and gone.
Yeah. And so that ship has sailed. Now, the other side of that is there is a penalty if you don't take your RMD. Now, that penalty is on a scale of phasing down. It's not going to phase out, but my understanding is it's going to go down to be similar to the premature withdrawal.
Oh, really? Okay.
Penalty of 10%.
Oh, so I'd heard it was 25%. Have they changed that?
It could be.
Okay.
It could be.
So I know the penalty was 50% of what you didn't take out.
Yeah.
So if he was shy by the whole QCD, which was probably the amount he was supposed to take out, he could have been looking at a penalty of up to half of what he should have taken out. But now that's been reduced down to 25%. But how does this all get? Is there a happy ending here?
Well, he had a number of options to make. Okay, so first of all, he could file a form letting the government know he missed it.
Okay. But then maybe that's when they assess the penalty. So
Right.
do you really want to go jumping up and down saying, hey, I forgot this? Or
Exactly. And so he opted, at least for now, he's opting for just letting it be. Because now the church was expecting that.
Well, yeah. You told them that money was coming.
So he went ahead and used it to make it a 2025 QCD. And so that's it, and he did the 2025 amount is a couple of $100 more.
Okay.
But it's unfortunate because that's it. He's actually doing 2024 in 2025. He therefore can't do it again in 2025. You only have one RMD.
Well, and I know Josh was met with people that have had this situation where they come in, they say, my advisor didn't help me with this, or I forgot to do this, or whatever. And Joshua, one of our CPAs, will say, well, normally what the government wants you to do is just take out what you should have taken out already from the previous year. But that, I remember, I think that happened before they changed the 50 to 25. So what was Joshua's answer here for them? Did he say maybe they should take out 2 of the amounts this year or give away 2 amounts? No, okay.
No, he gave him those options that I explained, and you could take another distribution, but it would count just strictly as a distribution. I don't believe it's going to count as an RMD.
Or as a QCD. Because a QCD you can only do up to what your required minimum distribution is.
Exactly.
So it's not like you can squeeze 2 QCDs into this year.
That's right.
What an interesting predicament there.
Yeah.
And you're right. If you were just a financial advisor and the client or the person that was coming and talking to you, meeting with you, if they were just meeting with a financial advisor, there's no real tax advice there. That would be a real hard it'd be a pointless conversation almost, right?
Yes.
And that's what happens a lot of times out there when people don't have the whole team.
And you know what? We talk a lot about the difficulty for the client that they have to go out and do all the legwork and tell their own CPA this or that, or if they do one of the do-it-yourselfer brands of taxes, then it's all on them. But you know what? If they take it to their accountant is probably going to say, not my problem. They goofed it up. It's not my problem.
And it leaves, again, all the onus or the responsibility on the retiree's shoulder. And that's just not, that's why I say the retirement system's broken, guys.
Yeah.
You have your CPA or your tax person out there. You have maybe someone that's helped you with your estate plan. Maybe you have someone that's helping you with your investments, or maybe you've just left it at your old 401k company. If you don't have a complete team of professionals that can help you navigate not only what the system is now, but when the system changes, when the tax rules change, when the laws change, when Medicare comes out with their updates, it can leave you in the dark. And if you wonder, could you benefit from working with this complete team, you can reach out and schedule a 15-minute call with us wherever you're at. You can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT, or that's 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Because there are some people in our listener areas that aren't near any of our offices. So we do that by phone or virtually. Well, stay tuned. We'll be going up to one of our other offices in Kansas City, Missouri, talking with Jonathan McCoy, an advisor up there. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on all things retirement, not just investments, not just the financial ramifications from it, but also the tax ramifications, the healthcare ramifications, and of course, those estate planning questions. I know I'll get it a lot when I'll meet with a family that has had a previous marriage, or maybe, unfortunately, maybe they've lost a spouse and they decide to remarry, or they get remarried, or they've been remarried. We call that a blended family, and that's where you have children from another marriage, but but you don't want to disinherit your new spouse, it can just add so many different layers of complexity to not only your retirement plan, but also your estate plan. We're going to go up to Kansas City now and talk with Jonathan McCoy. And well, not one of them. You are our lead advisor up there in the Kansas City area. And this is a story about someone you met with. They had an age gap, right? But this is Tim and Amy's story, and they were a blended family.
Yeah, exactly. So Amy being about 10 years younger than Tim in this case, their two families came together around 8 years ago when they got married. And, Tim is more rapidly approaching that retirement age, but he's planning on continuing to work until they both can retire around the same time when Amy reaches age 62 and can get her Social Security. So, they came in with some of these, what we consider more basic retirement planning questions around Social Security and things. But, they were fairly black and white. A lot of folks come and talk to us and they say, we don't really know what we need help with. Well, Tim and Amy said, we need the estate plan. We need a good plan for our health care when Tim and Amy were both retire. But primarily their concern was, and what we put at the top of the priority list was getting together with our estate planning attorney, Doug Schauder, here in Kansas City. In that meeting, this is the first time that we'd met them, to walk through that questionnaire process, get a little better understanding of what their family situation was. And, they lined out and simplified some things for us, saying that, they had decided that one of Tim's kids, and he had three, and then Amy's child, she had one, were going to be the 50-50 beneficiaries. And, part of the concern was, well, are we going to be disinheriting two of Tim's children? And Tim said, frankly, that's not the plan. And what we need to put in writing is the fact that my son, who's going to receive his portion of the inheritance, he's an eye doctor. He's very good with his money. He's the trustworthy one to make sure that he can manage and be the trustee if something happens to both of us, to make sure that those assets get distributed in an efficient manner and don't get taken advantage of or misused by the other two children of Tim. So they had already thought through some of this process, but the question was, what is the actual practical application and what needs to go in writing for that family situation? They had concerns around, are we saving enough money for retirement? Are we on the right track? Are we taking too much or too little risk? And there was just sort of a ball of all these different concerns that they could not sort out. And really in that first consultation meeting that we had with them, a lot of it was just, let's line out top to bottom priorities. Where do we start? Because we can't tackle all of these things all at once, but having these different professionals in our different departments, we actually set up 2 follow-up appointments with them, one to focus on the estate planning and getting those documents into place, one to focus more on the financial planning and tax management for them preparing for retirement.
Well, you're making me think about this as you're talking about this here. Would you say when you meet with people, whether they listen to us on the radio show, they watch us on our TV shows, they come to our in-class appointments, or whether they're referred by a friend, however we meet new people, would you say sometimes that they have all these questions that are not normally in one lane, like the financial advice, the estate planning questions, the Medicare, the tax questions? They're normally all over the place. And what I find is people get paralyzed because they have one question that seems to be the big question, and they can't make any more decisions until they get an answer to that question, because it has so much ripple effects. And this sounds like something that was going on here for Tim and Amy.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's where I think a lot of people struggle to identify what are the top priorities. And we've used dozens, if not hundreds, of examples on the show over the last several years that we've been doing this, talking about folks that, they might be focused hardline on one issue, and that might be the thing that's got them frozen. But then we can identify throughout the consultation process, bringing Joshua or other CPAs in, or our estate planning attorneys, we can identify, okay, well, yes, we want to tackle this issue just so you can move forward, mentally or emotionally beyond this financial decision. But ultimately, this thing over here might actually be costing you more money or causing other unforeseen issues or unexpected tax bills, whatever it may be. Are you aware of this? And what we find oftentimes is, people come in with their list of questions, but then ultimately the questions that we ask them uncover other issues that they may not have found out was costing them money or causing some sort of estate planning headache for their family, until or unless we bring it to their attention. So this consultation process is very much a two-way street. Some folks come in and say, this is what I need from you. But by asking those appropriate questions and knowing that we've got the trained professionals in all these different departments, we can uncover a lot of those issues that people may not even recognize are a blind spot in their plan.
And when you have those other professionals that you can bring in the room, whether it's, I think in this case, it was a lot of estate planning questions.
Correct.
Because again, they were that blended family. They'd both had previous marriages. They both had kids from other marriages or relationships. And it, like you said, they come in there with all their questions, and sometimes they've met with either a financial advisor. I think in this case, they weren't working with a financial advisor, right?
Yeah, they were both still working, so all the money was in their 401k plans through employment. And, they even had questions there on the tax side of it. Have we saved too much in pre-tax accounts? And really what triggered that question was part of the subject matter that we had in the workshop that they had come to. So again, it's not to say that we are there to just uncover and scatter all of these concerns across the conference table, but being able to professionally line out what are those top priorities. And we kept going back to those estate planning concerns, the fact that they had been a blended family for 8 years and they had done nothing to manage any of this. And if they both passed away, 90% of their assets in their estate was going to go through probate. So that was really the top of mind concern. But then also, what are your ultimate goals in leaving the assets to these two children, while one of the sons was going to be the trustee or the manager or executor of the estate because he was the most trustworthy and knew how to manage money and really didn't have a need for much of the estate. That was a good plan. The question was, how do they get that in writing? How do they get that communicated to the children in terms of how all this gets executed? And that's really where Doug is actually in the process of working on a lot of that documentation for them before we get back together here in a couple of weeks.
And you guys, if you're listening out there or you're watching and you're thinking to yourself, man, it would be really handy and helpful to have someone that can give me tax advice, answer my estate planning questions, help us with our estate plan, help us when the healthcare changes or the Medicare updates happen, or just help us with our overall retirement planning questions. If you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm frustrated that I have to go to other people and get answers or ask the question again, or I'm worried since I'm only working with a financial advisor, what could I be missing if I'm not working with this complete team? And if you have questions about if you could be missing anything or if you could benefit, reach out and give us a call. Schedule a 15-minute phone call with us, 833-MAG-REPORT. Or again, that phone number is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to that website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be talking about if or when maybe the tax code will be changing. How do you know if you're going to be maximizing it for your situation? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Retire Hour. Like I was saying, I went to the inauguration last week. It was cold.
I bet it was.
How cold was it out there? No, that's a Groundhog's Day quote. Never mind. But no, it was cold. But the government's going to be changing. Did you know that?
What? Since when?
Have you been under a rock? Had it been in a cave? If the tax code's going to be changing, how can people maximize that? Or maybe I guess a better question is, how can people know if they're maximizing it for their situation?
In short, they probably can't, because you have to know what all options are out there to know that you're taking advantage of all the things that are at your disposal.
But one of the ways we help the people we work with every day is we go through tax planning. And when you go through that tax planning, you see what's going to happen before the end of the year. And as I think we'll probably, I don't know, maybe be seeing some changes to the tax code this year, or knowing what they are, because they want this passed by like Memorial Day, right?
Yeah.
Which is an aggressive timetable.
And you know what? If you don't think that's giving a bunch of tax professionals some heartburn, you got another thing coming.
Well, you think they're going to really change it for last year, or you think they're going to change it for this year going forward or something like that?
Our fear is that they change it retroactive to the first of this year. So then not only are we going to be trying to get tax returns done for 24, but there could be people needing to make changes for 25.
Is that what we'll be talking here later at the end of the show, why you don't want to just get after it real fast?
Partially. Yeah,
Partially?
That's
Okay.
a bit of it.
I don't want to ruin that. But back to this tax code, if it's changing, if they do some very aggressive tax reform, which they're talking about, and you and I both know that there's other realities that go along with that, whether it's the deficit, whether it's the majority and how slim of a majority they have. But he seems like he's, signing 200 executive orders in the first day of the job.
Did he need a backup pen for that?
He was throwing the pens in the audience as he signed. Like a rock star throws their guitar pick. But it was this back to my point though, if the tax code is going to be changing, if they're just working with a financial advisor, or if they're just saving in their 401k at work, or maybe they're getting help from the bank, whoever, most of those investment professionals are not going to be equipped to help their clients maximize these tax benefits.
That's right. So those professionals I'm going to assume they're good at what they do, but they don't do everything. I mean, even us here, each of us do everything. We each have our lane.
We do not do Windows.
We don't do Windows yet.
Yeah, you're right. We do have our own lane that we stay in, and the investments is one, the taxes is one, and you guys, you're really worried they're going to go back and change last year?
Not 24. I think we'll see. I'm worried that we'll see changes effective 1/1 of 25, and so people will need to make changes early in the year because of whatever changing. At the same time, we're trying to get tax returns done, and so it'll be a busy season for us.
Now I'm following you. So you're worried that tax changes come out while you're in the middle of recording everything that happened last year for all of our clients.
That's right. And so one of our responsibilities as professionals is to keep up with all of this. And so not only am I going to be spending 8 hours, 15
8 hours. Only 8 hours. Wow. Have you taken some time off?
Perhaps.
I snorted. Sorry.
We'll be spending 15 hours a day putting tax returns together, but I'm also going to need to spend 5 hours a day, keeping up with all these changes and how they impact our clients.
And so this is something that we don't know. To almost echo Nancy Pelosi, we got to pass the bill before we know what's in it.
I am really afraid that's what's going to happen. And part of it is because we've seen instances where these legislators are not good at writing tax laws. And so there's going to be unintended consequences packed in there that we'll have to try to navigate around or through, and lots of new things to learn and new places to plan out opportunities for our clients.
Sounds like at the moment you have pretty good job security.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I'm worried for the people that are listening to this show, or they're out there retiring. If you're not working with a complete team that can say, hey, this is the law that's changing, and this is how you can maximize it for your situation, how will you know until maybe the opportunity passes and you miss something? And if you want to find out if you can benefit from working with this complete team, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. Or then that phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. That's our process that we take people through, but oftentimes people just need that 15-minute phone call to see if they could benefit from going through our full-blown process. But sometimes people just have fairly easy questions to ask.
Sometimes they're just little one-off questions, and we take care of that, and that's the end of the story. More often than not, that question then leads to something else, which leads to something else, which then leads to uncovering this big problem.
Just like my 6th grade science teacher, Mr. Lester, used to say, when NASA would get one question answered, it normally created 2 or 3 more. And that's the case. But that's the benefit of why we work around the same table, so we can have that dynamic discussion with the individual that needs the help. And guys, I'm telling you, as the government's going to be changing, as the laws will be changing, you need to make sure you're maximizing this for your situation, because you don't want to leave money on the table. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back talking with Corey Hebert with Market Medicare Advisors. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And I was just talking here with Corey Hebert about our inauguration experience, and yeah, it was a real bummer that we didn't get to see it outside and had to watch it from a watch party with some Republican governors, but that was still fun. Medicare is something that a lot of people in maybe their as they're nearing retirement, they get questions. And sometimes the only person they have to go ask these questions of is their employer, their HR, their human resources department. And is that really who you want to get your Medicare answers from?
Well, Matt, every week whenever we do this show, the day before, you want to know what we want to talk about. And I had a busy day yesterday. I had no idea what I wanted to talk about. So I'm standing up front talking to one of our receptionists up there. And I said, hey, what do you want to know about Medicare? Like, do you have clients ask you questions? And our HR department came walking down the hallway, and I said, hey, what kind of questions do you get about Medicare? And she threw her hands up and she said, doesn't matter if I get them or not. I don't know what the answers are to them.
I know to send them to you guys. But a lot of these HR departments, these jobs, these companies that people work for, they don't have the luxury of sending them down the hall to a health insurance advisor that can help them navigate all these different rules and changes. Because it's sometimes, if you're on some medications, if you have some things going on in your health, it's not as easy just to say, I'm going to pick that plan, because your prescription drugs might not be covered. You might not be in the right network. There could be a lot of different unknowns, and that's not really HR or your job's human resources responsibility to stay up on all those things.
No, it's not. But what we do find is that with HR, the job is to be a good resource for the employees that work at a company. I mean, their name is human resources.
It's in their name.
That's
They're
what they do.
resource.
So what we do find is that there is an intent sometimes with HR departments that whenever Medicare questions come their way, there's an intent to be helpful. This is insurance just like anything else. It should follow the same rules that insurance follows through the employer. But that is, like not the case when it comes to Medicare. So sometimes we have this situation where we have great intentions from this resource group that you've been working with for all of these years, but especially, a big theme I heard you talking with Josh is change. There is a lot of change that comes to Medicare about when you need to do something, when's the right time, what are the right plans going to be, and how are those plans going to change over time. And especially here, HR has got enough that they're dealing with keeping up day to day on the employee side that if they're given Medicare information, it might have been great information for 2 or 3 years ago, but this is a different Medicare that we're working with today.
Well, and it's probably going to even be a different Medicare as the new administration makes changes to their own twists on everything. And one of the big things we saw last year was the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden signed had a huge impact on people's prescription drug plans, even if they weren't taking maybe necessarily prescription drugs. And you are absolutely right. The HR department, the HR team, they have enough to stay up on their own things, but it doesn't really allow them, their continuing education, their trainings, their conferences they go to, doesn't really stay up to date on a lot of the changes that happen to Medicare.
Yeah, and I think you've seen this from our department over here at Market Medicare Advisors. Every single year, open enrollment is always the big time that we talk about. But some of the unseens that go into open enrollment is going to be in September, even before September, whenever each and every single one of our agents have to go through relicensing. And we have a luxury that a month to 2 months before open enrollment happens, we get updated on all the changes that are coming to Medicare, and we have to certify just to be able to sit down with people and talk about what changes are coming.
So you guys stay up to date on these changes. You guys are in the know of the different plans, products, and different coverages out there. But what do you want to tell people that are maybe thinking about they should go to their HR company or their HR department before they retire? What is the timeline as people are knowing they're going to be retiring, or as they're hitting that 65, that runway to age 65? What's a timeline that you recommend, generally speaking?
Yeah, so regardless of if we're wanting to continue working or not continue working, Medicare questions need to start happening about 6 months before you're ready to go on to Medicare. That's just a general question period to start building a roadmap. And then typically, at the latest, you want to talk about 3 months before the month you turn 65.
Now, I know you're going to laugh, and maybe we'll even think of some of the same people here when I'm talking about this. We have some folks that we help that are really good at planning in advance, and they like to come in a year or 2 years in advance.
Okay.
But that doesn't really. They can have a foundation of Medicare knowledge there, but if they're wanting to look at specific plans, those plans change every year, and that's not something. A year out's too far, is what I'm getting at.
A year out, it is. It really is too far out. The most productivity I get and the clients get out of those meetings are just simply setting up the timeline of, hey, thank you for being here today. Here's the actual timeline for when we need to be getting you into the office. And you're right, and I loved the way you pointed that out. Start some of the frameworks about Not necessarily what are the specifics on the coverage, but what are the general guidelines? What kind of animal am I looking at here when I talk about Medicare?
Because it's an entirely different system than either regular health insurance or your group or your employer coverage. It works differently. There's different copays. There's different rules. There's different plans. There's different options. You can go traditional Medicare and get a supplement. You can go the newer option and go an Advantage plan. There's so many nuances that you really don't want someone just saying, well, I work with Corey. We're about the same age. I'm going to pick the plan that Corey said he picked, and that's just how I'm going to get covered. That's a really risky route to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're dealing with, here in the U.S., an employer who for your entire life has sat down 2, maybe 3 options for what you want to do with health insurance. And, if you circle the wrong one on accident, it might not be the best year, but you're not going to be in the worst spot. Where Medicare, part of the difficulty with it is just that there are so many options. It's great because it does leave individuals a better opportunity to pick the one option that is right for them. But narrowing down all of the options that aren't the right ones for them can get increasingly difficult.
I was talking with Larry Clefcorn a little earlier about that. Sometimes, or maybe it was Jonathan Coy, sometimes when they have all these different things, it's either like paralysis by analysis, or it's just they're overwhelmed because they don't even know where to start. Mm-hmm. And that is the problem, guys. If you don't have these professionals that you can go reach out to, or further, or maybe a different way to say it is, if your professional that you're meeting with doesn't have the other professionals to go grab and pull in when you ask those questions, reach out and schedule a call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. Or again, that phone number is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group, report. Or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. You don't want to be caught in a situation where you got the wrong Medicare advice, because it can be quite costly out there. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back with Gerald Eidelman, one of our estate planning attorneys, with a listener question from Sandy B. Stay tuned. Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. And as we have a new government, they'll be putting their tweaks and their own little spin on different laws, and you want to make sure you get that advice for your situation before you find out after the fact when it's too late. And we have a listener question here this week. It's from one of our listeners in Kansas City. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. Sandy B. She wrote us this question. Sandy B. from KC. That kind of rhymes. What is the best way to track all my assets that are in my trust? Well, would have been a little helpful to hear if it was more irrevocable or revocable. But right. Let's talk about. That's an important thing. I mean, what if
It's very important, because assets that are not in your trust are going to wind up going through probate. And the whole point of setting these things up is to avoid probate. So there's several things you can do or you should do. First of all, when you're dealing with your attorney and setting these things up, that attorney should be helping you transfer these assets into the trust. We should, and this is what we do here at Eidelman Law Firm. We cover everything you might have, including investment accounts, money market accounts, whatever kind of account there is, checking account, and real property. And we help the client transfer those assets into the trust. So if you don't have that, if you're just told, hey, good luck, put this yourself, it gets complicated. We write letters to financial institutions explaining to them, okay, we're going to change the beneficiary to the trust. This is what's going to be named.
Sometimes you have to retitle an account.
That's
or
right.
Real estate property. That's or a lot of different things. Well, that's talking about, if she has a trust, I did not hear the question that way. So it's
Right.
interesting how you got that interpretation. Let me ask Sandy's question in a different way. What if she inherited a trust from her mom and dad?
Oh, well, that gets a little more complicated.
That's kind of where I was going. It's
course.
like, that brings in the Tiffany and Lana and helping us track all the trust accounting.
I mean, right. One of the things we do is we help trustees sort of put together the trust. And I mean, because the trust, as long as the individual who created it is living, they're managing the trust unless they became incapacitated. When you come in as trustee, as successor trustee, now you have to go out there and chase all the money, make sure that is, because if we put an account that's going to be ultimately beneficiary to the trust, we need to go and claim that account and put it in the beneficiary, in the trust. So there are several ways. We have found there is no way to go to every bank there is and check if your mom had an account in every bank. It's near impossible. But people leave clues, an old account statement.
Checkbook registers, if you still have one of those.
Right, exactly.
Bank statements.
Bank statements, deeds or tax records from a
True, yeah,
property.
yep.
All of these things are going to help us locate these assets and help you bring them into the trust. We also, of course, as part of our services, we not only help trustees fix their assets and bring the assets into the trust, which is really the most important part until you get to distributing, because you can't distribute anything that you don't have. So that's part of, that's our part as a law firm. We help you track that down. We write letters to finance companies. We do all these things to get the assets back into the trust. If it turns out that there's assets that were never entitled to a trust, then we have to go through probate for those assets, and we do that as well. But we also have the backside with market tax services that helps trustees be able to account for what they're doing. I mean, sometimes people come in as trustee, they don't know anything, they were just given, here you go, I'm going to name you as trustee. And like, oh yeah, whatever. And then you don't realize you as a trustee, you're a fiduciary, you have responsibilities. You have to keep track of that money like you were an accountant. That's why we have accountants for that purpose.
Go figure. But a lot of people are out there, maybe they're a nurse, maybe they're a stay-at-home mom. They're doing a lot of other things.
That's right.
That's not their job. That's not something they have a lot of experience with. So like you said, we have Tiffany and Lana over in the accounting department that can help us with these accounting, because if they keep assets in the trusts, there's a lot of accounting and reporting that you really should have going on.
Absolutely. You are required by law to report to the beneficiaries once a year. So you basically got to tell the beneficiary where you spend all your money, where it came from. And that's a hard thing to keep track of on your own. If you have, it could be a mother with 3 children. I mean, they may not have time to track all this down.
Maybe one sibling with all the other siblings, and maybe they don't have the time to do all this accounting method. Yeah. That's interesting that an accounting report is required by law to the beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. I've never heard you say it that way. I mean, I just thought, well, you want to make sure you know where all the money goes.
Yeah.
But when Sandy asked this question, Sandy B from KC, love that name, by the way. What's the best way to track all my assets that are in my trust? When she said my trust, it probably isn't from her parents then. But
right.
But I guess I'm reading more into the question that's maybe there, because we have these issues, like you said, that you need to keep the accounting records of where all the money goes. This is something that it's just really hard for the average individual to stay up on.
Yes. I mean, this is one of the things that, trying to keep track of your assets. If it's your own trust, trying to keep track of your assets and where they're at. Over the years, people sometimes set it and forget it.
Oh, yeah, that's not the right way to do it, because so many things can change.
Exactly. And over the years, you accumulate different assets and you let them go. And then all the work you did to set up your estate plan goes to nothing because you had to go through probate.
Yeah, it all really is for naught. I mean,
Right.
and
And that's what we're offering a client care
the client care
program
program. Yeah.
that will allow you to come in at least once a year, review your current assets, make sure that we haven't left anything out. So if you do that once a year, you should, obviously anything is possible. You bought a CD and you die the next day. We can't do anything about that.
Sure.
But the idea is that we have a constant meeting to review those assets to make sure that you're not leaving anything out. People sometimes, we put a house in their trust. They sell the house that was in the name of the trust because we transfer it. Then they buy another house in their name. They never bought the transfer to a trust. And then, boom, you're back into probate. And I'm telling you, probate can cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, 3 to 6% of whatever the assets you're trying to move through. It's crazy. Guys, think to yourself out there, this is kind of a duh, but I'm going to say it anyways. You won't be here when your estate plan goes into effect. You're setting all these things up. So if you've missed something or something's not there, leaving that clue game to your beneficiaries is not what you really want to do. I mean, if you care for those people. And if you wonder if you could benefit from working with this complete team, reach out to schedule a 15-minute call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again, 833-MAG-REPORT. Or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. What we want to do is we want to help people understand what they have, then make sure it's doing what they want it to be done or reaching their objectives that they want to achieve and helping them stay up to date on all this stuff. And speaking of stay up to date on this stuff, we're going to drag Joshua Sikora back in here to get answers on why you don't want to get a jump on your tax return, because you can start filing that as soon as January 27th. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more right after this. Well, everyone out there, if you're listening, you can file your tax return the first day the IRS will accept it. Is it January 27th, 2025?
That's right.
So we've got lead tax advisor here, Joshua Sikora. And, you're suggesting that just because the first day you can file is January 27th, 2025, you're not suggesting they go ahead and do that. But it's not because we have a new president. It's not because you think that tax laws will change. Why do you not recommend people just jumping on that first day they can file and getting it out? I mean, you have a lot of the people that don't like to wait.
Sure. I get that. And the fight against procrastination is always a worthwhile struggle. But do you know the one thing that's less fun than paying to have your taxes done? And that's for having to pay to have them done again, to get them amended.
Oh, like an amendment. So if you missed a document, or God forbid they change the rules. I say God forbid for you, mid-season they change the rules.
Yeah, like we talked about the last segment. So we've seen this before, right? Someone comes in and they're like, oh yeah, let's get my taxes done. Okay. Is this, they bring in all their documents. Is this everything you've got? Yeah. That's everything we get. And then a couple weeks later, we see them coming back in, or they give us a call and they say, oh, you know about that return you sent in? Yeah, I got something else. And, when we talk to people, they'll say, well, when should I get all my stuff? And our default answer is, well, they have to mail it out by the 31st of January.
They're supposed to mail it out by January.
But that's not for all the documents. So, for example, if you have a brokerage account, then that statement, that 1099B statement, isn't due out till February 15th. So if you're filing in the first couple weeks of February, you could be missing out on stuff. Or there's other 1099s that are due out in different points in February.
Now, I don't think we've ever talked about it on the show, but what's interesting for my clients that you do their tax returns for, they don't have to wait on those documents per se. If it's money or investments we manage, really the only 1099 we're waiting on is Social Security and or a pension.
That's right.
And so we have access to all those documents.
We do, but the responsibility is still on the taxpayer to make sure everything gets talked about, right? So maybe I can pull some of the stuff, but we still need to talk about it, make sure that it's there.
And so what can an amendment run you? So if you forget one of these documents, then you're saying you might have to go back and amend your tax return because you left off one of those.
That's right. And depending on what it can be, maybe it's like a 1099 NEC, which means you need a schedule showing business income. Or if it's a 1099B, you need something showing capital gain income. And those can be, it can add up.
It's not just $35 is what you're saying.
It is not
it
just
can be
$35.
hundreds of dollars.
Hundreds.
And so, guys, if you're thinking to yourself out there, man, I really want to file because either I want my refund or I don't want my ex to claim a kid. I've heard a lot of different reasons and some doozies. But you want to make sure you're protecting yourself. You want to make sure you're doing the right thing for yourself. And if you don't know if you are, reach out and give us a call at 833-MAG-REPORT. Or again, that phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com or our company website, marketadvisorygroup.com. Because you don't want to get in a hurry, forget a document, and then have to go back and spend a lot of money on updating your tax return. You want to make sure you only have to do it once, right?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Well, that's all the time we have for Retire Hour. We'll see you back here next week. Stay tuned. Or see you next week.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.